to the regular board meeting in education, Walk Senior High School. It's Wednesday, November 17th, 2021 at 7 o'clock. First thing on the agenda is going to be Mr. Massapus and Daniel Green will present on the senior high school homework survey and the senior high school grades 9 to 12 homework assistant lab program. Ready?
Absolutely.
Hoorah.
Good evening, everybody. BJ Maspus, high school principal, and I'm fortunate enough to be joined by Dan Green, and we're going to be presenting to you, the board, and the community, our vision for a high school homework assistance lab. Before we get into the vision and the process that we went through and what we're hoping to propose and get approved this evening, I do want to say a few words about Dan. Dan, come on up. Dan was instrumental in this process as one of our finer seniors. He joined me and helped create a student homework survey to get feedback and input from our students in grades 9 through 12. He also helped design the presentation itself, which the members of the board and district admin have a copy of here tonight. For those of you that don't know Dan, not only is he an advanced placement student, he's a multi-sport varsity athlete. He's also a scholastic musician who qualified for New York State, the NISMA All-State Choral Selection. And just a standout representative for our high school community. So I wasn't surprised when Dan was able to support me in the way that he does. He's a great communicator, he's intelligent, he's dedicated. But what was impressive was how he balanced all his responsibilities, outside of this project, and was willing to join me on free periods during the course of the school day, work on this after school in conjunction with our library media specialist. So thank you, Dan, and a brief round of applause for Dan and all his support. So as we, transition back to in-person learning 5 days a week, we're starting to look at, or we're continuing, to look at areas where we can support our students. And one area that we thought was valuable to look into was student homework and what supports, if any, exist or we need to explore to support students in successful homework completion. So our vision for the Homework Assistance Lab is a quiet place for students in grades 9 through 12 to work on homework assignments in the building with the assistance of a content area specialist from 2:30 to 4, Monday through Thursday in the high school. And so that was our vision for the program. And Dan's going to speak a little bit about the rationale, why we think it's necessary support for our students.
Thank you again, Mr. Massapus. So the rationale behind having the homework lab is so that all of our students can get better homework grades for a number of reasons. The first one is that in most classes, homework and classwork grades are about 20% of the student's course average. And teachers really want the students to do well on the classwork and the homework so that they can have a better overall understanding and better average throughout the school year. Secondly, it reinforces what you've learned in class that day. I know that personally, sometimes teachers don't give us homework, they'll give us extended classwork that if we don't finish it in class, then we finish it at home that night to make sure that we understood what we were doing that day. And most of my teachers, if not all of them, are always open to answering any questions I had on that homework. And lastly, it helps prepare for the formal tests in the classroom and that New York State administers. I know that, especially my science and math classes, because those are the big Regents classes, that my teachers will give me questions or worksheets that have been on the Regents, or types of questions that I will see on the Regents, so that when it comes to the test or the Regents, I already know what to look for in those questions.
Thanks, Dan. So to take you through the timeline here a little bit, on November 1st, I met with faculty and staff at the high school, and we discussed the potential for a homework assistance lab. They were all very supportive of that idea and that program, and with their blessing, we then went ahead and moved forward and started to work on a student homework survey to generate as much information from the student body as possible on what their needs, if any, were, right? And so then I notified parents that students would be taking student homework survey in social studies classes, grades 9 through 12. They took that survey on Friday, November 12th. We were able to get the results. This week, I was fortunate enough to meet with many teachers who are interested in working as supervisors in that homework assistance lab. We ironed out details like scheduling, how students would sign up with a technological link on the high school webpage, on the Schoology page, and things, logistics of that nature. Then tonight, obviously, we're reporting the results of that survey and that process with all of you, with the hopes of promoting it to the student body starting tomorrow, all through next week, and then ultimately beginning the program on Monday, November 29th, the week we return from Thanksgiving break. Lastly, I do plan on sharing the results of the student homework survey because I think it's valuable for our teachers to get that information and potentially reflect on practices in homework as well. So that will happen on Monday, December 6th. So that's a little bit of the timeline and the process that Dan and I went through in conjunction with some of the teachers who are interested in serving in the homework assistance lab. Now, we get into the survey results a little bit. We had 615 students in the high school participate in the survey. And if you look at it by grade level, 145 of them were freshmen, 137 sophomores, 203 were juniors, and then we had 131 seniors participate in the survey. Dan's going to share some numbers on the results.
Yes, so 62% of the students who took the survey said that they do 30 minutes to 2 hours of homework on average each night. And then 49% of the students actually said that they've received more homework this year than in years before. So they might need that extra time with the homework lab to get that homework done. Then 77% of students who took the survey said that their homework assignments are designed to review. So it does back up that second point I made earlier, where it does reinforce what they had learned in class that day. And over 200 students who had took the survey said that they would be interested in attending after-school homework assistance labs. And so we might only start out with 200, but as the program grows, more students are much more likely to sign up over time.
Absolutely, thank you, Dan. And as we looked at the data and we disaggregated it a little bit further, we found that students were most interested in attending homework labs for math and science. And that makes sense as it checks out with what Dan had suggested previously. Those are the courses where you do see standardized assessment, state assessment, and that homework is valuable in preparing students for classroom and then ultimately state assessments. So what's the proposal? We want a homework assistance lab to be offered in the 4 content areas. So English, math, social studies, and science, Monday through Thursday from 2:30 to 4 p.m. That gives students a quiet place to work on assignments with the help of a content area specialist, and also something we didn't mention previously, access to a 4 p.m. bus. So every student who attends that after-school homework assistance lab will be able to be transported from the school to their home, which is very important for all of our students. And then we'd be looking to start it on Monday, November 29th, if we were to be able to get approval here. Dan?
Yes, and so the students that we would be targeting we're going to encourage this to all students. We're not going to limit it, but our main focus is students who struggle to find a quiet place to complete their homework after school. That can be a struggle for students because if you don't have a quiet place to think, then you're not going to benefit from doing your homework as much as you could. Also, students who are struggling to complete homework assignments on time. Say, like Mr. Masters has said, I'm in music, I'm in sports, and if I had that set time, maybe before practice, I know football practice during the season started at 3:30, so instead of going home, I could have stayed there and made sure I got at least some, if not all of my homework done. And lastly, students who are behind on completing homework assignments for any number of reasons. So you had to quarantine or you were just sick, and now that it gives them that school time, that set time where they are to do their homework and to catch back up where they have fallen behind. Mr. Mansell?
Great, Dan, thanks. And so the last question is, how do we promote this program, right? It starts by putting a link to sign up right on the Walk Hill Senior High School homepage on the website. Additionally, we'll have a Schoology group for homework assistance lab. And we'll look to our guidance counselors, our teachers, to make recommendations to parents and to their students about the availability of the homework assistance lab. We'd also look to post it on our social media pages. The high school has an Instagram page, a Facebook page, and a Twitter page to blast that information out to reach as many students and parents as possible so that they're aware of the service or the lab itself and hopefully people are taking advantage of that. And we also do have parent-teacher conferences coming up next week where we can communicate this as a resource to parents if we get approval from everybody tonight. And that's all we have for you. Thank you. If anybody has any questions, we'd be happy to answer. Yes, Ben.
The question I have, a question. It was a concern, I believe the last time I was speaking to the board and also about this particular thing when you were asked to come up with this. Very nice, by the way, both of you. Good job, great job.
Yeah.
One of the things that that I had spoke about was that teachers are under the pressure too, and we could all agree with that. And when you look at 49% of the students saying they're getting more homework now than they did before, certainly is the proof of that the material that they have to get covered is quite extensive. And last year, 2 years, I mean, it's been a debacle, not only here, but all over the United States as far as school. So I would think that really kind of shows that, and that this homework program really addresses that very good, because they're going to get that extra help, and certainly the bus Monday through Thursday is a big deal. So I congratulate you, and I feel that question I had asked and spoke about is being addressed right here. Thank you both.
Thank you, Mr. Petroselli. And just an added thought, so 49% of the students who took the survey, right, so we had 615 students take it, 49% are articulating that they are experiencing more homework than they had previously. If you break it down even further, a freshman class, almost 100 students felt that way, right? And something that we've known and been familiar with in education for a long time is that transition from 8th to 9th grade, right? And the expectations and how it rises, just academically. And Dan can probably speak to that, even more so than I can in current times. But I can remember that as a student, believe it or not, a long time ago, going from 8th grade to 9th grade, and realizing that those academic expectations rise, right? And part of that transition is becoming a high schooler and managing that time. So this program or this service to our students, I'm hoping would be utilized and definitely by members of the freshman class who may be feeling, hey, I gotta get organized and get a quiet place to do this so it doesn't get the best of me.
Awesome. Cool.
Yeah.
Sorry, Thomas.
Do we have any idea what percentage of the student population completed the survey? Just curious.
So roughly we have about 1,000 students in the high school. So 615 of the 1,000 took the survey.
Okay, that's a lot. Thank you. So great presentation, by the way.
Yeah, outstanding presentation, and I'd like to say that it's nice to see that the student rep is actually involved. This is something that we've been asking for a long time, so this is awesome, and this is what we want out of you. We want some work out of you a little bit, So this is one of those things where you went back to the rest of the group and you brought back what we wanted, so that was excellent. And we will be voting on that tonight. So great job, great presentation. Well, I'm going to move things around a little bit because I want to talk about the survey. So before we can talk about that, I want to just jump around. We're going to go to call to order and stand for the pledge now.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right. So we've all received the survey that was done, caused by our goals meeting about the live streaming of school board meetings. There was 255 yeses and 7 noes. Everybody has seen the survey, I understand, correct? Everybody's looked it over? Yes? Okay, good, very good. So 262 people did the survey, 255 said yes. You've all read the survey. Mr. Castle has done his due diligence and logistics portion of it, so we're all good to go there, right, sir? Okay. So at this time, seeing the survey and what's been said, I'd like to make a motion, or I'd like to find a motion for for us to live stream and record all meetings starting, I believe it's January 14th, it'll be the first meeting in the new year. So I'm looking for a motion for that. Leaf and Dustin. So what I'll do is open the discussion if anybody wants to speak on the matter. If not, I'll call for a 19th, I'm sorry, it's 19th, January 19th, not the 14th. I apologize. So I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried. So that's what we'll do. We will live stream and record all meetings from now on. January 19th. So the book is there if anybody wants to speak. Please sign the book. If you don't sign the book, we'd rather you sign the book. So we want to know who we're talking to. So if anybody wants to speak, we're going to pick up the book here in a second.
Hey, could I, you asked me, and
Yes, sir.
I didn't jump on it.
Yes.
The live streaming, right?
Yep.
Great idea. We're all for it, right? I'm all for the recording of it. I just want to say that I think that adds to our transparency.
Yep.
Look, I've been a member of this board for 16 years, right? This board has always been transparent,
Yep.
right? This is just another way to add to our transparency.
Yep.
So 100% in favor of it. I just wanted to
Yep.
give you my 2 cents. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you, Mr. President. First up is Janice for the survey.
I have to say thank you for considering the survey. Obviously, that's what I was going to talk about because that's what I put on there. Good evening, my name is Janice Vincenzo. I reside in the school district. One of my children attend the high school here. My other child, because of dyslexia and her disabilities associated with her dyslexia, is in a private school. I'm going to skip around a little bit because I had something prepared, and I'm very pleased that the decision was made. But on the topic of the survey, I had done a petition before the survey, and I know there were some questions about that survey, and I was prepared to kind of talk about why, how the petition came about. So let me look at this for a second. The topic of the petition was discussed at the last board meeting, as you guys had said. Tonight, I just wanted to offer some clarification regarding some issues that the board had brought up regarding the petition. First, I wanted to thank you all for addressing the petition during that closed meeting. It was a long, fully packed meeting, and I appreciate you taking the time out for that. The board stated that no information about how signatures were collected or what people were told before signing it. Since public comment wasn't allowed at that time, I just wanted to share that information with you now. Signatures were collected in 2 ways. One's online and the other one in person. Now there's 175 online signatures that were collected via change.org. That petition was shared with the Wallkill Parents for Dyslexia and Awareness Action Group, and then it was put on Wallkill Community Facebook groups. The only way to sign that was you had to read through or scroll through the explanation, which clearly states by signing you were in support of live streaming. So I want you to understand that we were also trying to be transparent and fair to everybody. The 265 in-person signatures were collected mostly at community events, football and baseball games. Parents and community members were approached and asked if they were residents of the school district, and then they were asked their opinion about the petition. They were asked if they wanted to sign the petition, and they could if they wanted to. I've never done anything like this before, and it was really a pleasure to talk to so many fellow Walk Hill community members. We have a really good, strong community, and people want to be more involved, so I'm thankful that this is going to happen. The people that I spoke with or interacted online were overwhelmingly in agreement with this petition. Only one person I spoke with was against it. Teachers and employees were also in support of the petition, but they declined out of fear to sign. My final point of clarification is that we wanted it both live streamed and recorded, and I hear that you're doing that. So I thank you all, I appreciate your time, and thank you for doing the right thing by the public.
Next up is it Carol Lewis? Carrie? Sorry.
Can I pick this up for her?
Sure.
Thank you. My name is Terry Lewis, and I have 2 children in the Walk Hill School District. I first want to thank the Board of Education. You have my sincere gratitude for your service to our children and to our community. I came tonight because I wanted to address the topic of posting videos of board meetings. I am so pleased that the board has decided to post the video of the meetings as well as live stream. In the last meeting, one Board of Education member stated that if people think meetings are important, then they should come to the board meetings. I'm glad this was stated, because this may be a common belief, that people who don't come to the meetings but still want the videos posted aren't prioritizing correctly, and if they should make it a priority and just show up. I want to address this assertion. My body is attacking my own nervous system. I will pass out if I sit or stand for more than a few minutes. As such, most of my days are spent 23 hours or more in bed in a darkened room. I am randomly afflicted by excruciating episodes of pain that can last for hours or days. As you can imagine, this greatly impacts my ability to participate in community functions like the Board of Ed meetings here. By being here now, I will suffer in pain for days as a result. Does the fact that I have a neurological disease mean that I am not prioritizing things correctly? Does it mean that I do not care about or have anything to contribute to my community? Of course not, right? It sounds ridiculous. Yet, policy decisions in the past about access to board meetings appear to be based on the logic that if it is important enough to them, people will attend meetings in person. During the 2019-20 school year, I wrote a letter to each board member asking to add an agenda item to discuss increasing access by posting videos of meetings. You wrote a letter back to me saying you would not consider it. In the 2021 school year, I called every school board meeting again. Some of you did not return my calls, some of you did, and I had lovely conversations with you. At that time, I informed you of the policy 3100 that says that the Board of Education is mandated to go beyond state requirements in communication. Many of you had never even heard that you had that policy, and I sent it via email to show you. Despite my requests, the topic of posting videos was never added to the agenda to be discussed. It is now 2021-22 school year. One board member in the last meeting unilaterally stated, no, we're not going to post videos, but streaming would be considered. At that time, there was no discussion of who is being left out if we don't post videos. I want to discuss that and address it now. 1 in 4 adults have a disability of some kind, and it is normal to have a disability. That's typical. That happens in our world.
29% of U.S. adult population cares for someone with a chronic illness or a disability. That is typical for people to have to care for others. 30% of adults work evenings and nights. 1 in 4 households is headed by a single parent. Live streaming does not work if you cannot commit to sitting uninterrupted watching the meetings at 7 p.m. on Wednesdays. These statistics are the reality of our community. These are the numbers in your community. I would love to see our Board of Education making policy decisions about who has access with this reality in mind, instead of making negative assumptions about the reasons people cannot be in meetings in person. So tonight, here I am before you, the 3rd school year in a row. I thought I was going to have to ask again that you discuss, just add to the agenda a discussion of if you would post videos so people like me can be involved. Instead, I want to ask you, from now on, can the board please make the default to include everyone? If people want to not include people, then they should have to explain why. Every day, we get to wake up if we're lucky. Today I got to wake up and I got to make a choice to be here. We don't control everything, but today I got to make the choice to come here and speak on behalf of including people with disabilities in our school system. You do have power, and I ask that you carefully consider all of your decisions and ask, who am I leaving out? It's unintentional, I'm sure, but who am I leaving out? Lastly, I want to offer to speak to any board member or any administrator to share my experiences of navigating the district as a disabled parent. Many times I am left to advocate for accommodations when they could easily be provided. Please call or email me at any time. I love being part of solutions. I thank you for your time, and I really thank you for your thoughtful consideration of my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Steve Vincenzo.
You can pass on me, thank you.
Thank you. Next is Martini, it looks like.
My name is Kayla Martinez. I think what I was wanting to say is I couldn't say it better than my previous person here. The reason I'm here is because, again, I'm coming from one of the board members last time. There's many reasons why people are not able to attend in person the board meeting, not because they're not prioritizing. What she just explained is bigger than what my reason is. But one, I wanted to give you my perspective. I have 4 kids in the district. They all have extracurricular activities, full-time, working, and my job is a global job. So my meetings start at 4 a.m. in the morning, some at 7 p.m., some at midnight. So many times I'm not able to control what I can do. It is priority for me to support my job as a global senior management. Just wanted to give you my perspective to open the aperture of what diversity and inclusion and all the reasons why people cannot attend in person. But obviously, what the person said, for me, much bigger than what I have to say. So thank you for considering the request, doing the live streaming and recording. It will definitely expand the engagement and involvement of the community. And I think you will see much more ideas and involvement from everybody. So thank you.
Thank you. Next is Kathy Harrington.
Good evening. I'm Kathy Harrington, and I am a proud mom of 3 children in the Wallkill School District. 2 of my children have dyslexia and special needs. One is in the middle school, one is in Ostrander, and my other son is at Plattekill. I would like to thank the board member for their openness to pursuing the live streaming and posting of the Board of Education meetings, and for approving that, as it will definitely enable more families to be involved in their children's education. At the Board of Education meeting on 9/15/21, Mr. White presented the School Comprehensive Education Plan for Ostrander for the 2021-2022 school year. This was necessary because Ostrander was designated as a target school due to low scores of the special education students on the state ELA exams during the 2018 and 2019 school year. Mr. Castle, during the recorded copy that I saw of the meeting, had explained that it was due to the large number of special education students whose parents had opted them out of taking the tests. And if all the students in that special education category had taken the test, the scores would have been higher. Only 43 out of the 81 students certified as special education in Ostrander took the test that year. Being an involved parent, coming to the meetings when I can, I attended the PTO meeting at Ostrander, where the corrective plan was being discussed. It encouraged improving communication with parents, getting the students excited about learning by increasing school spirit, Dr. Mack is pretty special, and monitoring the emotional well-being of students as corrective actions. However, as special education students opting out of the test ELA exams was identified as the cause of this designation as a target school, it would have helped if parents of special education children were asked why they opted out of these ELA state exams. Ostrander, until recently, is a school that all district special education students needing ICT and self-contained classroom support, including those with dyslexia, were sent to for 5th and 6th grade. Parents of students that have not been identified as having dyslexia and have not received the proper interventions using OG methodologies early in their schooling have many reasons to opt their children out of state ELA exams. These include test anxiety, not having the skills to attempt, if possibly complete the exams, and not wanting their children to experience another negative reading experience, causing more feeling of inadequacy. I would like to thank the Board of Education for listening to feedback from the parents of the dyslexic children 2 years ago and making the necessary changes so that ICT services could be offered in Leptondale and Ostrander to prevent students from being moved more than once. Ostrander has been designated as a target school. Being designated as a target school really identified the weakness of the reading instruction district-wide before 2018 and 19, as all students diagnosed with reading challenges were enrolled in Ostrander for 5th and 6th grade during this time. I found the posted recording of the Special Education Parent Advisory Committee meeting from 10/27/21 to be most helpful. I was attending the Pops concert proudly for my oldest son, who music was the thing that kept him in the game before his diagnosis of dyslexia. So I was attending the Pops concert and couldn't attend the meeting in person or on the Zoom. Being able to access a recording of this meeting helps me stay involved with my children's education, and I thank the Special Education Department for recognizing this need. During that meeting, the advances made in the district's approaches to reading instruction approaches over the last 2 years were explained in detail. Reading and other teachers have received training in Orton Bellingham methodologies towards classroom level certification. The implementation of foundation curriculum in the Pioneer Valley for grades K through 12, focusing on multisensory approaches as well as offering extra reading instruction opportunities during summer school and the school year has also happened. I'm glad to hear that the high school, with their extra help for homework, is going to be offering transportation, as I know that's been a need for transportation for some of the students to access that extra help. While this is a great start, it is important that no student, including the 1 in 5 that have dyslexia, be overlooked. Using a universal dyslexic screener for students grades K through 2, district-wide will encourage teachers to make referrals, implementing their OG and multisensory training. It is most important to ensure that they get the right instructional approaches to avoid continuing to fall behind academically and suffering emotionally. Waiting for signs of the suspected language disabilities leaves many, many students with disabilities that should be included overlooked. Curriculums that approach reading instruction using scientifically proven methods and explicitly taught skills enable all students to have a better opportunity to learn to read and not guess. Training teachers in OG methodologies is a great start, and continuing to access the district's choices in ELA curriculum as more information is learned will help all students and not put the 1 in 5 that have dyslexia at risk, and make sure that no student with a disability is left behind. Thank you, and I appreciate all the effort that the school district has been and the Board of Education has been making.
Thank you. Looks like Joe Falcone. All right, I said it right? Yep. Okay.
Thank you. Good evening. I just wanted to talk about the survey. I had a big speech planned, but you guys went ahead and passed it, which was a big deal for parents at work. 7 p.m. on a Wednesday is either bedtime, bath time, or bedtime. So to anyone that understands that knows that it's hard to make arrangements. And we've heard from some real people who have much greater problems. So just want to say thank you, and I appreciate it from all the parents.
Thank you. Okay, we'll go into the minutes now. Need a motion of the board accept the recommendation of superintendent approve the minutes of the October 2021 regular board meeting. I don't know who said it. Vinnie, please. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried. Board accept the recommendation of superintendent approve the minutes of the October 28, 2021 special Board of Education goals meeting. Second. Same too? Who was it? Vinnie? Dustin? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried. Next up, we'll go to committees. First is the audit. Mrs. Crawley's the chair. Don?
Yes, Joe. The committee has not met since the last meeting. The internal auditors were in the district to perform the annual required risk assessment. And the next committee meeting will be scheduled once the district receives notification from them that the draft report is complete, so we can do all of that.
Okay. Any questions for Don on audit? Seeing none, we'll go to budget. Don, you want to keep going?
Sure. This evening, the board was provided with the draft budget calendar for the upcoming budget process. In addition, on November 17th, 2021, agenda is a recommendation to approve the tax warrant. A summary sheet of the taxes collected was provided to the board. Finally, as discussed at the last board meeting, the CPI that will be used in the tax cap calculation is trending to be about 2%. And I think Brian may have a little more.
Yeah, so we're into the budget process. So next month, as you can see on the budget calendar, we'll talk about building allocations. And then in January, we'll do the rollover budget. So currently we're working on that right now. We're working with the administrative team the next few weeks, looking at class sizes and so forth, and we'll have those a little bit later on. So just so everyone has a reminder for the rollover, those in the public, it's taking the current budget, everything we have in the current budget, rolling that forward to next year. So it gives us a baseline to see what we would have, including the programs, extracurricular activities. So taking everything that we currently have this year, the 21-22, and moving to 22-23. That time, usually towards the end of January, we'll get an idea from the governor in terms of state aid. That's usually a starting point. And then the budget, hopefully, will be on time from the state. That usually comes at the end of March. So we'll be able to have meetings in between there as we finalize our numbers as we move forward. So The CPI with the 2%, as Donna spoke about, and we spoke about previously, that'll help us on the revenue side a little bit. For there, that's one piece of the tax cap calculation. But we'll continue to have those discussions as we move forward. I just want to share a little update as we move forward. Any questions?
No? Thank you, Brian. Thank you. Next is Building and Grounds, Mr. Frisbee's chair.
Yeah, thanks, Joe. The Buildings and Ground Committee, we met on Monday, this past Monday, November 15th. We met with Tetra Tech, our district architect and engineering firm, and it was a good one. We had continued discussions on developing the scope for that future, potential future capital project. We discussed various items that could be potentially included as part of the scope. We will be meeting again on Thursday, December 2nd at 6 p.m. I want to thank the committee members because I thought we had a really good discussion actually after we were done with Tetra Tech. It was a good discussion. I want to thank you all. You know how much I like this stuff, and good discussion.
Outstanding.
So it's important to point out what we've done historically with our projects. We look to see when the debt is coming off the books. So similar to, say, the audience, if you had a mortgage and then your mortgage, you no longer had a mortgage, you would have a drop off. So with school systems, it's important that we maintain our buildings because these buildings are not going to go anywhere. And we're always going to have kids. But we also have to be mindful of the taxpayers. So what we do is we look at our debt schedule to see when we have debt coming off, and then that's when we plan for another project. The reason for that is so that you keep your debt level the same. Because what happens is, if your debt level falls off, and at some point you have to do that project, you then will have a spike in your budget. And you want to try to avoid that. So that's what we're looking at doing, is putting together a project that clearly maintains our facilities and at the same time avoids any spikes in the future. So in talking with our financial advisor, they suggested that, because it's about timing, and May, which coincides with the budget vote, would be a good timing for that. So over the next several months, we're going to look at our building conditions survey, which we've already done. I mean, this discussion has been going on, but I should say we're going to finalize what's in our building conditions survey. And our building conditions survey is a 5-year plan in regards to our facilities to prioritize the work that should be done. And when I say the work that should be done, it's not work your typical minor maintenance and repair. It's entirely doing the roofs when the warranty runs out, as an example, when the warranty is running out. There may be HVAC repairs, but to the extent that you would have to go and borrow, not necessarily have the money to do that. So we're going to finalize in the next couple of months that scope, and then of course we'll present that to the community in presentations so that you have an idea of what we're looking at. But I think what's important to point out is it coincides with debt coming off the books, and if you keep that debt level the same, then you don't run into a problem later on where you then suddenly you have to do all this work that you put behind you, and now suddenly there's a spike in the budget. We have to avoid that, because then that spike is felt by the taxpayers. And we have a fiscal responsibility to do that, and that's what we've been doing over the last several projects, and it's been very helpful, not only of course to our students, but also to the taxpayers.
Thank you, Mr. Castle. Anything else? Any questions? No? Next is CDEP. Ms. Anderson's the chair. Catherine.
Thank you, Joe. The CDEP committee has not met since our last meeting, and our next meeting is Wednesday, February 16th, 2022, from 9 to 3 in the high school auditorium.
Want to go right to curriculum tag?
Yes. Curriculum also has not met since our last meeting, but we will be meeting Tuesday, December 7th at 3:30 in the high school, room 126.
Thank you, Kevin. Next up is Health and Safety, Mr. Balance, Chair. Dustin.
Thanks, Joe. The committee met today, November 17th, 2021. The committee discussed the emergency release day drills performed each building, as well as discussed the COVID-19 health and safety protocols through the district. Committee will be scheduling another meeting for next month.
Outstanding. Any questions for Dustin? Seeing none, we'll go to legislative. Mr. Petroselli, the chair. Ready?
Thank you, Joe. The legislative committee has not met since our last meeting, but I'll ask Mr. Castle if he would like to speak on the subject. I know he's been writing numerous letters to the legislators and also the health department. If you'd like to address that, please do, Mr. Castle.
Sure. So actually, this report will coincide with Dustin's, because Dustin, it's going to coincide with what we spoke about policy. So I'll start with what I've been doing, and then Dustin, if I could, just put over Dustin, which then will be policy. Okay. So I have written letters to our legislators on several topics, and most recently, there was two recent developments in Albany. One was the governor's announcement looking to make schools vaccination clinics. And I shared a letter, which is on our website, our concern with that. We do make available, if needed, on the weekends. If the Ulster County Health Department does reach out to us and they need a facility, we have allowed them to do that. My concern was the vaccination clinics during the school day, particularly when you don't have parents present, and who is going to do that. So I expressed my concern with that. And in fact, the state put out a survey, and the question was, would you be willing to do a vaccination clinic at school during the day? And we said no. We will though make sure we do communicate, because the health department does ask us to communicate where there are sites available for parents. So we are doing that for them. And then because parents, it's up to them, it's their choice whether they want to have their child vaccinated. And that leads me to the next piece. There is an Assembly Bill A08378, which was recently introduced in the Assembly, that would require immunization against COVID-19 for attendance at school. So that clearly is a concern of mine along with the board, that we feel that they need to slow down the process and further get feedback from the constituents to see the impact this is going to have on families. Right now, families do have an option to go have their child vaccinated. The question is, to what extent do we have in our community that may not want to get their child vaccinated, and then if they're mandated, they are put in a position now where they have to make a decision whether or not to homeschool their child or get the child vaccinated. And I believe that that needs to be slowed down in regards to this bill that was introduced. And I did write a letter expressing that concern. It was on behalf of the Board of Ed. So that leads me to the next piece, because I did put in my letter that they should reach out to the constituents to see what their feeling is regarding this proposed bill. So rather than waiting for that, we decided we'll do it. So we, at policy, we spoke about sending out a survey to our community, our parents, to see what their input, to get their input on what they feel in regards to whether or not it should be mandated. So at this point, I'm going to hand it over to Dustin so that he can discuss what the survey will look like.
Thanks, Mr. Kessel. So just as we're moving forward for the policy meeting, which we had last Tuesday, November 9th, the committee first continued the discussion from the previous meeting regarding a newly required policy. After the discussion, the committee recommended that the policy be approved and discussed, and that's on the agenda for its first reading today. The next committee meeting is scheduled for January 11th, unless the meeting is required prior. So a little bit further into what Mr. Castle said, so at the end of the meeting, which was on the agenda, we had several parents that had showed up for the meeting, and we actually had what in my opinion, was an extremely productive and meaningful discussion which ensued after that on the topic that Mr. Castle just mentioned, which is our Bill A08378, which is where the Assembly would require the immunization of COVID-19 for attendance at school. So a great back and forth discussion between the parents, the board members, and the administration that were there took place. A bunch of ideas were put forward, suggestions about how we could contact our legislators, what we should be pointing out to them. And Mr. Castle, as you guys know, have written letters previously in reference to this topic. So what we kind of came up with at the meeting and with the parents were there was creating a survey to our parents of our children to see where they are on this subject. So that's in front of you guys. I don't know if you got a chance to look at it yet, but this would go out and it asks for the information just to see where our community, specifically this district, is in reference to that discussion. So our thought is that the survey would go out. We'd receive that back, I believe, the beginning of December, and then those results would be passed on to our Assembly to let them know what Waukegan feels in reference to this. And our hope is that maybe we're just the first in the county to do this, and then maybe some of the other districts would jump on board to really show where we're at. And like what Mr. Castle said is right now everybody has that option of whether they want to mandate their child or not. And in my opinion, that should be left up to the parents to make that decision and not necessarily be mandated to it, as Mr. Castle said, because it puts them in a position. What do? Do they not send their children to school? Do they have to provide another type of education? Do they have to do homeschooling? It's a bunch of things that I feel should not be a choice that they have to make, other than whether they want to make their or get their child to have that COVID vaccine. So if you guys want to review that today, this is something that we're hoping we can get approved by the board to put out, so we can start this as soon as possible, get these results, and then send it to our state assembly.
So Dustin, just to point out, so our goal is to send it out tomorrow. Since it's only going to the parents, we will utilize school messenger. It's one survey per household. However, in the survey, parents have the ability to answer the question twice if there's two parents in the household. It will say, are you in favor of New York State requiring children to be immunized against COVID-19 in order to attend school? Parent guardian one will have an opportunity to answer that. And then that question will be duplicated so that the other parent has the ability to answer that. Then we also felt it was necessary, because you may have parents that feel, we don't want to mandate it, but I may get my child vaccinated. So I'm against the mandate, but I may want to get my child vaccinated. So we added the question, do you plan to have your child or children receive the COVID-19 vaccine? Yes, no, or we received the COVID-19 vaccine, undecided. Because that's different than someone's feeling in regards to whether they want it mandated or not. So we felt like we had to separate that. And then, just so people know, we do have on here to put the street address and the town in which you live in, because we got to make sure, if we're going to send this to the legislators, I got to make sure I'm not sending duplicated counts. So that will give us an opportunity to really sort it to make sure we're not getting duplicated surveys. And then also, we're asking to see how many children in the household, and that's important, because let's say hypothetically there was 100 parents, let's make it 200 parents that said they don't want it mandated, and there's 3 children per household. That's 600 kids that are going to be impacted by this if this were to go through. And I think the legislators need to hear that. See, they need to see what the reality is, what the actual impact this is going to have on communities and families. So I feel like I'm very passionate about this, and I felt like we had to get ahead of this, and I don't want to sit back and see if they were going to get feedback from constituents. So let's do it for them, and we'll get that information, and hopefully we'll get a good return on investment. They're going to have parents with about 2 weeks to complete it. I mean, it is short. It's going to take at most 30 seconds to complete. And we'll put a reminder out there, but the more parents that respond, the better idea we'll have in regards to how the community feels, not only based on the mandate, but also whether or not they're going to get their child vaccinated. So I think this will be great information to share with our legislators. The last thing we spoke about is if we get a significant return that parents feel that this should not be mandated, I'm going to reach out to our legislators who represent us and see if they're willing to do a town hall so that they can hear from the parents firsthand. They need to hear from them in regards to how they feel about this, because it's genuine and they need to hear it. Because when they hear it just from me or maybe some other or a board, it takes the politics out of it if they hear it from a parent and how they feel about it and why they don't want to have their child vaccinated. And it makes a lot of sense when you listen to the parents and when they share this story with you. And I get it. So that's what we're doing.
Just we felt in the discussion at the meeting, instead of just a handful of parents reaching out to legislatures, that if we did this as the second largest district in the county, to put this out to all of our parents, that then we may have a greater impact on what our state assembly sees when we send it to them, as opposed to just a dozen or 2 dozen people reaching out individually. This, I think, if we do it as a district, I think we can, show really what we feel as a community.
Yeah. No, great job with policy. Great job, Mr. Castle. I mean, this is time. It's time we dig in and start pushing forward. We're pushing back a little bit, right? Let's get them to work for us instead of us having them work for them. So great job. Great job. All right. Next is technology. Mr. Spencer's the chair.
Just real quick, does anyone have any reservation? Then we're okay sending this out tomorrow.
Yeah.
Any reservation? Okay.
Send it out.
If you hold on a minute.
Yes.
I'd
sorry.
like to speak to that.
Go ahead.
First of all, Dustin is correct. It was a good policy meeting. After the meeting, the parents did recognize that this board is in compliance with them. They never knew that before because we really don't speak out at our meetings, but we, talk amongst in the executive session. So I want to make that point. They were very pleased with us. And I'd also like to say thank you very much, Kevin. Thank you, Dustin. That's it, Joe. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Vinny. Anybody else? Sorry, I didn't ask that. All right. Again, Mr. Spencer, you're up.
Joe, the Technology Committee hasn't met since our last meeting. Our next meeting is Monday, November 29th, 3:30 here in the high school.
Thank you, Lee. Next is wellness. Marlon is the chair of that. Are we well?
Everybody's well. The Wellness Committee has not met since the last meeting. The next meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, January.
Outstanding. Last but not least, our student rep, Mr. Daniel Green.
Thank you. As some of you may know, the first quarter of the school year has ended. And as a result, next Tuesday is parent-teacher conferences at all the schools. Some teachers will be in the gymnasium at the high school, while others will just be in regular classrooms. Tomorrow night is also financial aid night at the high school from 6 to 8. Last Saturday, the drama club put on and recorded a performance of You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown. Leo Club had a meeting today and had discussed what they're volunteering at Craft Night at Liptondale this Friday night at 5 p.m. Also, they had a very successful Socktober drive and they collected over 400 socks. Going back to parent-teacher conferences, NHS is currently having some of their members volunteer to help show parents to the classrooms that they need to meet those teachers in. All of the music groups are preparing for the winter concert, which will be on Tuesday, December 14th at 7 p.m. Both the All-State and Area All-State concerts will also occur before the next school board meeting, with Area All-State happening this weekend. And at the end of the fall cross-country season, senior Luke Demos competed at the state cross-country meet He finished 44th out of 120. Winter sports began on Monday for all our teams, and those teams that require tryouts are finalizing their rosters. And lastly, the parent meeting is Monday night for all of those sports teams. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Green? All right, next I'll turn over to Mr. Castle for certificates.
Okay, so last month I dropped the ball. While I had the certificates with me, I forgot to hand them out. So last month was board recognition month, and I think it's important to mention the amount of time this school board has put in to ensure that our kids are receiving one of the best educations around. At the last Bowls meeting, we had an opportunity to hear of all the great things that you have approved over the last 9 years. And because of that, we've been at the forefront of many initiatives, not only in this county, but other counties as well. Whether it's the one-to-one training, or check out the one-to-one initiative that we did prior to COVID. So when COVID hit and we had to shut down, while it wasn't completely seamless, it was much better because we had the devices in place, from the capital project work to the training that you've provided, approved for our teachers, to the athletic programs, to the intervention programs, to the positions you've added. All of this has significantly helped our students in the Walk-Hill School District. I'm hoping many of you feel the same sitting in that audience. I was fortunate enough to have my kids go through the Walk-Hill Central School District, and they had a board of education that was student first, and they benefited from that, resulting in their success, both in college and out. So on behalf of the 2,800 students in the Walk-Hill Central School District, I want to thank you for your dedicated leadership in public education and continuing service to the children of this community. Thank you, and I have certificates for you. Catherine Anderson. Student Rep Daniel Green.
Thank you, Mr. Castle. Thank you all the board members for a great job. All right, we're going to consent agenda. The use of consent agenda permits the Board of Education to make more effective use of its time by adopting a single motion to cover those relatively routine matters which are included. Any member of the board who wishes to discuss an individually a particular piece of business on the consent agenda may so indicate. That item will be considered and voted on separately, thus preserving the right of all board members to be heard on any issue. Anything being pulled? Seeing none, any motion for the agenda? Lee, second. Tom Nathy. I'd like to call him Tim. Too many Toms. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Litigation. I need a motion to go to executive session for possible litigation and for negotiations with CSEA. Second. Any Dustin? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried. Thank you, everybody. Have a good night. Be safe.